Good morning, everybody. Here we are at School for A Course in Miracles. Wow. School for A Course in Miracles. It's, for me, it is a place where a place in my mind where the universe of learning opens up. The Course calls it the universe of learning. And it says it will open up before you in all its gracious simplicity. So learning from the Holy Spirit is learning within that universe of that is committed to learning at a whole different level, beyond linear time and beyond learning through any methods we can conceive of other than the willingness to listen to another voice, to listen to an alternative to the raucous shrieking of the world, the raucous shrieking of our egos, the raucous shrieking of our littleness, of our refusal to accept atonement for ourselves. Really, that's the bottom line. It's the refusal to accept atonement. And so Jesus, has given us this extraordinary opportunity to learn together another way of seeing, and to learn together truly why we are here in this world, and what the classroom really is about, and what it is we're needing to learn, and then opening ourselves to being taught. What do we need to learn, and letting ourselves be taught. That's really part 2 of the workbook. Part 1 was all undoing, or becoming very clear, if not the undoing was completed, but of what it is that we need to continue to undo. But now we recognize it. We recognize when the ego is at play, we see it, and we realize now, after completing immersion 1, that we have a choice. Boom, right there, we know we have a choice. So we know that when we're making noise, that it is the ego at play. When there's noise going on, the ego is at play. And we all know what that feels like. Who doesn't know what it feels like to be making noise? It's has nothing to do with hearing, does it? It's noise in the mind. So choosing to listen to a different voice. And here we are now in part 2 of the workbook in terms of immersions, and it's an immersion 2 class, so they have been through immersion 1, and now the curriculum is to really step up the pace, because now we're going to be learning from the Holy Spirit, and we're going to not have as much interference, because we know when the ego's at play that it's the ego, and we can choose again. So the end of doubt, the acceptance of the atonement is literally the end of doubt. And it's interesting to me that the place that came up first in talking about the end of doubt is in the manual for teachers. And it's the first page. In fact, it's the introduction to the manual for teachers. Page 1, manual for teachers. And it's funny. Sometimes I think we've skipped right over this. We just missed it somehow. So I thought that would be a good place to start with looking into accepting atonement for ourselves and our part in it, of course. So paragraph 3. The curriculum you set up is therefore determined exclusively by what you think you are and what you believe the relationships of others is to you. So that's a picture, almost imagery of exactly what this is going to be about. What I believe I am, or what this is, what I think you are, and what that relationship is really about. In the formal teaching situation, these questions may be totally unrelated to what you think you're teaching, obviously. The form the teaching is taking really is not where the teaching is. The teaching is in the mind and what it's choosing to see. That's where the teaching and the learning is going on, and not in anything we're doing in form. So what is it that I'm teaching right now? What is it I'm teaching? It has absolutely nothing to do with, the talk. We're teaching at the idea level, and we're learning at the idea level, and the mind is literally altered. The complete direction of where we're getting our information from. What is informing this one that goes by the name of Lynn? What is informing it right now? Is it the Holy Spirit? Is it oneness? Is it unity? What is informing it? That's all that matters.
Seems like there's a big clue in what you just read, is determined exclusively by what you think you are, and it has nothing to do with the word who.
Exactly.
The who is usually what jumps in and has all kinds of grievances and complaints and issues, and then I've been watching my mind justifying some of those issues and complaints off and on over the last few days, and just kind of watching how the ego's like a little scared uh, critter, trying to run like a little cockroach trying to run for cover when it gets uncovered, because it's full of doubts and has no certainty, and is very fearful. And when it surfaces, it's like, okay, let's bring up all the complaints and all the issues, and then try to justify them. And you can hear the kind of that echo in your mind of all the stuff that really doesn't make any sense, but the ego desperately tries to justify all those things. And so a phrase I've been using the last few days is to try to realign is, can I forgive myself for what these alleged others haven't done, and that sort of thing. And if I can kind of put things in that perspective and recognize that it's all about my projection, and I set myself up for an opportunity to look at the contents of my mind through all those projections, and no matter what it is, no matter what the form, then I can listen to that voice instead of the ego's raucous shrieks.
Yeah. Yeah. What is Bruce? What is the question behind all of it? What is the question that would keep us from saying, I have accepted atonement for myself?
What is the question?
Like, there's I think it seems to me, so check it out. It seems to me that all of the casting about, the the awareness that the acceptance of the atonement is the only thing that is required of me, and that I or anyone would be dancing around about it 40 or 50 years later and still I still can't say I've accepted the atonement for myself. I mean, it has got to indicate there's a little something going on there. And that, and I think in the lesson that I want to look at today, that we look at together, is the lesson, I will accept atonement for myself, and to begin to realize where the stops are, what is really in the way. My sense is it's all joined up with the idea of how we see, and learning to see differently, and learning to see with the Holy Spirit. That is our way to allowing ourselves to be taught and become learners, and realizing who is it that goes with me. Obviously our teacher goes with us. Obviously everything that we need is there, but learning that is another thing. Learning that is a big step. So in saying, let me teach you this, what it is to accept atonement, there's the realization that atonement, the how do I say this? Atonement sees with what I am. Atonement sees with nothing but love. Atonement sees with nothing but charity. Atonement sees with nothing but kindness. Atonement sees with nothing but nothing but hope, possibility, resurrection. I mean, atonement sees only with these ideas. Does that make sense?
I think that exactly, it makes sense. I say to myself more and more now when I'm feeling like I wasn't kind or whatever, I say to myself, Jane, that was not the right way for a call for love, to respond to a call for love. And everybody is calling for love. There's not anybody who is not constantly, on some level, calling for love. And if I can just remind myself that it's their call for love, but it's my call for love too.
There's just one call for love, you know.
One big, gigantic call for love. No matter who it's coming from or what it seems contentious, if the person is seeming contentious or whatever, they're just calling for love. They don't know how to do it any other way, which none of us do until we really work with it and work with it.
Yeah. So I'm going to read on a little bit here in this paragraph 3. Yet it is impossible, sentence 3, not to use the content of any situation on behalf of what you really teach and therefore really learn. So no matter what the form that we're engaged in, it can be used for that purpose. It can be used to demonstrate these ideas of seeing only with charity, seeing only with hope, seeing with the eyes of love, seeing with the idea of unity, of oneness. So what you really teach and you really learn. To this verbal content of your teachings is quite irrelevant. It may coincide with it or it may not. However, here we go. It is the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. So, you know, we're teaching ourselves what we've decided we want to learn. Hope, charity, love, you know, unity.
I was just thinking in terms of, it's not about the form. You know, if you speak to a dog, it doesn't matter if you know English or Swahili or Farsi or you know, some other language. The dog will pick up telepathically on the feeling and the tone, and I think the same thing is true with us. You know, we know when we're working out of one or the other thought system, and we feel it immediately. I mean, it's just, you know, to Jane's point, you know, everything is a call for love, and if we respond to that call for love with love, you know, it comes across and it's obvious. And when we're withholding that, we're withholding it from ourselves, and that's just, it's ultimately silly. But we need to see that over and over again until we finally let go of that crazy masochistic tendency.
Yeah, well, we're pulling out all the plugs, you know,
Yeah.
that have kept love plugged up inside of us. I mean, the plugs are in this mind, you know, and they have to be pulled out in order to, you know, let that really begin to have us seeing, like, who is it that's doing the seeing? It's no longer personal. So it's the who that's looking and it's the who that's listening has just it's just gotten more expansive, you know. It's gotten, the barriers are going down, and it's like seeing and hearing through the Holy Spirit's sensory organs. The Holy Spirit's sensory organs are vast. I mean, they're infinite, eternal. So that's a whole different ball game for us to be stepping into, and to do it fearlessly.
Yeah, our true identity's got to be transpersonal or metapersonal or whatever you want to call it, because it's not about the seemingly separate self, and that's when we feel peaceful. Is when we let go of, grappling with trying to reconcile an irreconcilable insanity that we call ego, and and finally surrender, not in any kind of a defeated way, but really truly a success when we recognize that the ego's strategy of one or the other never is going to work, and it's only by shared interest that we find any peace, and that's a transpersonal, or beyond the little I self awareness that it's just so obvious when we tune into it. It's like, well, why wouldn't I do that before? And then we look at all the resistance, and then gradually let the resistance go. It seems like.
And as I become more and more focused on what it is I do want, because it feels better, because there's more peace, and it's downright joyful to be able to start talking about what's true instead of what's not true. I mean, we've had a lot of years of what's not true. Do you know what I mean? It's most of our lives it's been what's not true. But here it is for us. As we were saying, it's about walking out of this thought system and into, call it a thought system, a new thought system, which is a transitional thought system to heaven and God. But nevertheless, it's the real world, where we're talking about our desire for reality, which I don't know, I can't see anything else to do. Is anybody else seeing anything else that you want to do? So to just think that, again, allowing ourselves to even think of being able to learn from our teacher from out of time, and with his guidance and the guidance of the Holy Spirit, to really live his message, which is our message, which is, he is the model, the absolute model for that. And for the end of doubt about what I am or you are or anybody is, the end of doubt. So let's go back here to, again, the Manual for Teachers, paragraph 3. Sentence 6. It is the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. Teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. What do I believe about myself? I mean, am I beingness itself, and offering the content of love and kindness and charity? Is that what is here, regardless of what the words are saying? Is that what is truly here? Is that what I'm in the process of being taught by the Holy Spirit, because I've entered into realms that are new, This is a, literally new
I can
frontier,
see it.
and one in which we're going to learn, what we've decided we want to learn about ourselves, we're going to teach.
Lynn, I wanted to say when I read that line number 6,
Yeah.
I think so very, very often about what Ken always says, at least be kind. That to me is such a, Linda, was that kind? And I can see that. And then what Lynn and Bruce were talking about, going back to that call to love. But as someone who's relatively new in the program, just if I can stop myself and say, was that kind? And then I know I'm not in my right mind. And then I ask to see it differently, and then it'll change. But for me, the atonement is the belief that it never happened. That tiny mad idea never happened, that this is all a dream. And all the time I'm not there, but I can tell when I'm kind. That's pretty obvious.
It's a good barometer, isn't it?
I think that's why the Dalai Lama has his wisdom distilled into one word of kindness. Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's look here. So it's the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. Teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish self-doubt. This does not mean that the self you're trying to protect is real. We know who that is. But it does mean the self you think is real is what you teach. This is inevitable.
Pretty big.
This is inevitable. There is no escape from it. How could it be otherwise? Everyone who follows the world's curriculum, and everyone here does follow it until he changes his mind, teaches solely to convince himself that he is what he is not. So we'll always be going in the direction of the world and the body and the dream of fear. It's all, as the Course teaches, as I think we read last week from the Gifts of God, the last segment. And it's that the entire world is made of fear. It's all fear.
It is. Everything.
And it can't be other than by being a classroom offering an opportunity to change our way of thinking. It has no use or no meaning but to learn to, to forgive it, forgive our belief in it. And then really turn it into a rip-roaring classroom. I mean, how long, oh Holy Son of God, how long do you want to play this game of suffering and death, I mean, sometimes when stubbornness sets in, about anything and wanting to stay in any position at all about anything. And I just sort of see Jesus, sort of smiling and saying, you want another week? You can have another week. What do you want? Another week? You know, another 3 days, you know, just anytime, you know, just give me some time. It's true. It's funny when we think of it that way, though, isn't it? How much longer you need? Okay. So,
I'm reminded of that one of isn't it one of the early uh, sessions that at the Foundation for A Course in Miracles where Gloria said, "Imagine if there's a button you could press it and it would be instant enlightenment." And she asked how many people would press it, and not many hands went up, kind of thing, because we're all kind of nursing along, our grievances and our bucket lists for wanting to maintain the ego and all these different things that seem to be more important than the peace that's beyond the ego scope. Huh?
I just had this flash as you were saying that, Bruce. I saw this calendar, an annual calendar, and you know, every page of the calendar is a question like, well, how many more days do you want, or you know, how long do you want to keep this issue going? You know, but just reminders that we have a choice about it. You know, we have a choice about all of it, and you know, the even the pictures of the suffering and the pain and all of that. It's a choice to believe that or not. So
Each
I
page of the
think,
calendar could say, I could see peace instead of what ego wants to do with January 1 or January 2, and on, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think, Lynn, I think if we can remember too that the gift that we give to somebody in distress is really God's gift. And when we help or we see that call for love and give give the love back, really we're showing gratitude to God and love for God. I really believe that. And the real distress that's being healed is being healed by God or the Holy Spirit, not us.
into, oh, excuse me, no. Am I on the right page? Yes, page 2. Um, Everyone here does follow the world's curriculum until he changes his mind. And he teaches solely to convince himself that he is what he is not. Herein is the purpose of the world. What else then would its curriculum be? Into this hopeless and closed learning situation, which teaches nothing but despair and death. God sends his teachers. And as they teach his lessons of joy and hope, their learning finally becomes complete. Except for God's teachers, there would be little hope of salvation, for this world of sin would seem forever real. The self-deceiving must deceive, for they must teach deception. And what else is hell? This is a manual for the teachers of God. They are not perfect, or they would not be here. Yet it is their mission to become perfect here. And so they teach perfection over and over in many, many ways until they have learned it. and then they are seen no more, although their thoughts remain a source of strength and truth forever. Who are they? How are they chosen? What do they do? How can they work out their own salvation and the salvation of the world? This manual attempts to answer these questions. I can see where that would lead to the end of self-doubt. You know, that, you know, it's like it's an interesting, a manual, a manual for the mind of the teacher. What does it take to not deceive ourselves, to not enter into the self-deception of the world. As he said, if you believe in self-deception, if we believe that we're these bodies, if we believe that this is the sum total of what we are, and we're not learning that we're minds and that everything is coming out of the mind, and how we see the world is totally up to this one decision that we're making, which is to become learners of the teachings of the Holy Spirit. Well, how is that going to happen? Without our enrollment, without our full engagement, how is that going to actually happen? And so we start teaching something else in order to learn what we really are. We teach a whole other thought system. It's beautiful. What an amazing thing. So we're near the end. I think I'll close with reading something I found about the atonement, since our trajectory is going to be working with the idea of atonement and what that's going to mean for us, and ultimately learning what giving and receiving truly are and experiencing that. This is about atonement. The first corrective step in undoing the error is to know first that the conflict is an expression of fear. Say to yourself that you must somehow have chosen not to love, not to extend, to bring, to see with love, to see with love, to hear with love. You have chosen not to love, or the fear could not have arisen. then the whole process of correction becomes nothing more than a simple series of pragmatic steps in the larger process of accepting the atonement as the remedy. These steps may be summarized in this way. Know first that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Hi, David.